Hello, hello, and welcome to the second half of season 5. I can't believe that we're already halfway through the year. My name is Debbie Heiser. I help entrepreneurs make a lot of money doing what they love without sacrificing what's important to them. I feel an urgency to help people let go of past messaging so that they can lead a lit up life. And with that, I want to again welcome you. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the show.
Straight from the corners of my mind is where I find my sanity. It's a place, another land, another time.
Hey there, I wanted to pop in really quick before you listen to this week's episode and tell you about two quick, exciting opportunities that I have going on. I have a few openings as a private client, and also coming up on Thursday, October 26th through Saturday, October 28th in beautiful Sandpoint, I am holding a women's business retreat. You can find that out on the website under programs, retreats to find out more, and also book a consult for a private client. Hope to see you. Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. I am really excited here to be with Dr. Linda Larson, my friend. And I am so intrigued, and I couldn't wait to have this recording because Linda intrigues me so much. I've known her for a while. She was a director of, I'm going to let her explain everything that she's done, but of these courses, that was my first introduction to her. I was actually here visiting my friend and met her. And then through the years had watched her as she continued to get additional degrees and so on and so forth. And now, for the lack of better word, she's like a brain scientist, and I can't wait to talk to her. I think the proper term is neuropsychologist. Is that right? Neurotherapist. Thank you. And so Linda and I have been in many groups together and have worked together, and it's been my pleasure to watch her grow and see her take this dream that she had to be in Sandpoint, Idaho, and do this and just have it explode for her and helping so many people. So Linda, I'm going to have you introduce yourself, tell how you show up in service in the world, and then we're just going to have a conversation about how you lead your lit up life.
Oh, sounds great. And thank you, Debbie. It's really a privilege to be here with you. And you have been a very integral part of my life in developing the clinic that I love so much. So my background actually is in international business, and I did that for many years. And then life comes and shifts and changes, right? And actually puts you on different pathways. And so some of the pathways I've been on have been pretty amazing. And when I came to Sandpoint, I did work with individuals and people who wanted to have healthier relationships. And part of that population was people ordered into the program for domestic violence. So that was kind of my background. And then my daughter had a horseback riding accident and a brain injury, and that took me on a whole different pathway where she actually was warehoused in assisted care and just medicated. And then what happened is I was led to take her to a neurotherapist, and that's what gave her life back. And so now she's independent, she has a job, she drives, and she has a personality back. And so because of my passion for seeing that, I wanted to offer that for other people. Went back to school, got my master's and PhD and my BCN in neurotherapy, and started a clinic here, which did just explode very fast. Yeah. And so, that's where I am today, loving what I do.
That's so awesome. And Linda, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk a little bit because, like you said, we all have these life things that happen, right? That shift us, and we can choose to go down a really negative path and feel like the universe is against us, or we can choose to look at like what is for us. And I think about, now, don't get me wrong, I mean, I wish this never would have happened to your daughter, but when I look at it, because that happened, you are doing what you're doing today, helping so many people. And I can't imagine, and I'd like to, if you don't mind, touch on this just a little bit, like as a parent, like, I don't know, were you sitting in the stands when she was jumping and this happened?
No,
Like how scary
actually,
that was.
yeah, great question. No, actually, I usually was at her events, but I was teaching a class to professionals in the community, and got the phone call, and she was taken by ambulance, and then actually we ended up down in Coeur d'Alene. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was pretty scary because she was an avid horseback rider, jumper, and yeah, loved it. But yeah.
And the fact, like, I'm so intrigued that like as a parent, you never gave up hope, right?
No.
And you continued to seek out, what can I do to help her? What can I do to help her? And what a lovely individual. I mean, I've met her and she's so pleasant. And I remember you came to my house at Christmas and she was playing games with people. And just to know that story about how
Yes.
they didn't think she would be able to function. And now to see that, and that's what you do with people. And it's just
Yes.
so amazing. So when you think about like getting into this neurotherapy, like what for you, I know the clients are like the thing for you,
Right.
but when you finish your day and say, well done, good and faithful servant, what like taps you as a win for you? Like give us some examples.
Okay, so examples are when we're working with clients here, and when we're able to show an individual actually what's going on in their brain. We do quantitative EEGs, and we do a software exploration of that, and which produces a brain map. And so we're able to show the individual this is what's going on in your brain. And so this is what's so powerful about what we do, and I get very excited about, because we see the biology of the brain, which is something that you're not driving per se. And we can also see this is what we see as most likely a brain injury or trauma, or you're stuck here in the fight or flight, lots of anxiety, difficult paying attention and focusing. So we see all those things. And then when the individual sees that, what we support is this is a pathway for you to have a healthier brain and to let go of the blame and shame that you've had because you're not good enough. There's something wrong with me, where no, it's biology of your brain.
Yeah.
And so when individuals then receive the treatment that we do here and start experiencing, some of them from the first treatment, not all of them, but some of them, I mean, we get so excited about, their progress and their freedom. And we do a comparison, a pre-QEEG and then a post. And we get to show them, we're not guessing what's going on. This is what has happened with your brain. So at the end of the day, Debbie, that is what I am very thrilled about and love to be able to provide that.
Yeah, that's so cool. And let me ask you, because like part of why I get so turned on talking to you about the work that you do is because for those of you that have been listeners for a while, I'm not BSing you, right? Like it is brain science. And when I'm talking about it, sometimes I think, there's the voice of cynicism that's like, yeah, right. But like literally, and I don't even know, you said this to me numerous times. And what does the acronym stand for? That when you do the first map of the brain?
Okay, quantitative EEG. It's an EEG, which is like if you went to a neurologist, what it does, and it's a hard word actually for me to say, but what it does is that it actually records all of the frequencies in your brain in the specific areas. And then the quantitative part is we take that data and we quantitate it, because your brain functions in blood flow, chemistry, and frequency. And what we look at is frequency, because we're looking at function of the brain.
Okay.
MRI and CAT scans look at structure, and that's really important too. But we look at how's the brain functioning. You can be cleared with an MRI or a CT scan, and structure looks fine, but the function is not working because of the brain injury or the trauma or just life in general. So that's what actually happens is we record with a cap on your head with electrodes, and it just listens to the frequencies in the specific areas and records that. And that's the basis. So we don't guess. That's part of my business background. I'm more logical part of, I am a licensed therapist, but I tend to be more on the logical side. And so what I tell our clients is, I don't like to guess. I'm a licensed therapist, and you can do a lot of work with therapy, which is really good, but I want to know what's biological that this person is dealing with, and then what's behavioral and that we could work on. And so That's what we do, and that's what the quantitative EEG does. It shows us
Yeah.
that.
Thank
And
you. So like the
yeah,
frequency, and I talk a lot about universal laws and the law of
yes,
vibration.
right.
So Linda, when somebody comes in and I know you have numerous different ways they can work with you. It can be over a period of time. You also do an immersive. So if somebody's from out of town, they can come in
Yes,
and stay for a certain period of time and do multiples in a row.
right.
But when you do this first quantitative EEG, then you work with someone and basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're rewiring the brain. Like
We're
you're mapping.
Yeah, absolutely. What we're doing is we're training the brain to heal and rewire itself. So you're absolutely right, Debbie. That's what our program and our treatment does. It helps because the brain wants to heal. Even if we see clients that come in that had injuries. I had a gentleman in the 60s that came in and had a traumatic brain injury when he was in 6th grade, and that still showed up. And what happened was amazing on how that brain actually kicked in very quickly, which, we always get very excited when it's really fast, and how he was experiencing for the first time in his life being present.
Yeah.
And being connected and having the joy that he'd been missing his whole life. And he was astounded by it. And so, that's again what just really excites us.
Okay, so then you come in, we've the brain's I can't even speak today. The brain is rewiring itself.
Yes.
And when you have kind of finished like a series of sessions or an immersion, is there a relapse or does the brain like continue to go forward? And I know it's situational probably, but what happens after that?
Well, and what the brain does is the brain wants to work the way it was designed, and in my personal belief, the way it was created to work. And so the brain stays that way. Sometimes people will come up and say, we want to just come in for call it a tune-up or whatever. But no, what's so amazing about the brain is it typically will stay where it is. And again, everyone's, very different. And we treat every individual completely uniquely, because this is not a cookie cutter process at all. It's really the brain. Everybody's brain tells us what it needs.
Yeah.
And so it does stay. And sometimes we'll have to do several. And what we do are the accelerated trainings where you come twice a day for 15 sessions, and then we do a post Q. So we do the comparison. And with some, we recommend more than one series of that. Or people that can come, that it just depends. And again, this is brain driven. We don't, we don't guess. And that's what I love about it.
And Linda, tell me, because I'm making some assumptions and you know what that spells, but like the Debbie assumption is saying, okay, I think about my son, right? Who in kindergarten was, there was a girl in his class that was much, much taller than the rest of the kids. They backed up into each other and he fell and hit his head. And then later we get a phone call that says he can't see, right? So he's had a concussion at the age of 5. Right. Then plays football. Middle school through high school, 2 or 3 different, slight concussions of things, and then just normal everyday wear and tear of your brain. Like I'd love to get him in there. I'd love to get me in there too, because of the car accidents and stuff that I've had, and skiing accidents and COVID, because I know you worked with people in COVID too. So I want to talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
But like when I think about those things, to me too, it almost feels like, and I could be wrong here, so I want you to correct me, but like we have these like actual physical things that happen to our brain, but then there's the emotional and there's the intellectual pieces that happen to our brain, sometimes generational trauma. And my assumption would be that the more trauma that we've had, and that means physically to the brain as well as mentally and emotionally, sometimes it might take a little bit longer because there's layers.
Absolutely right. Because what is so fascinating and a great question, Debbie, is that we'll start a treatment with an individual, and this is what the brain has shown us, and we do the healing of that brain, and the brain will show us something different. And so then that's the next phase. So you're absolutely right with that. And also what's really fascinating, it's fascinating. Everything that we do, I think, is fascinating to me, is that we can see something that has going on in the brain that isn't, quote, normal, or it's not functioning the way it should. And we can say, well, this is something that isn't working right. We can't necessarily, sometimes we can say, if we see white matter damage, we can say, okay, this was more than likely a traumatic brain injury. But trauma and brain injuries can actually look almost the same and similar in our brain maps. And so again, we can't say, well, this is when this happened, this is what happened, but we can say
Right.
this is what is. So yeah, great question.
That's fascinating to me. And then as I think about like, can you, and I know there's some HIPAA violation stuff here too that I don't want to get into, but when you think of like a situation that you've had, or even if you can kind of like blend a few together, that you were even wowed, that it was like, holy cow, I didn't know if we were going to be able to make an impact in this person's life. Because I know you help people with anxiety, you help people with COVID, because that brain synopsis thing, ask me how I
Right.
know, it's a real thing. And you help people with major injuries to their brains, trauma, all of those things. But well, back up before you go there. Tell us a little bit about like this uncovering that has happened with COVID and what you've seen
Oh,
with the brain, if you
right.
don't mind.
Oh,
I think that's
absolutely.
fascinating.
And what we've treated individuals with are people who've had COVID and had what we call long haulers. That's
Yeah.
brain fog, that's fatigue, that's just low motivation, and just like kind of the light has kind of gone out, and sometimes really extreme ways or just kind of mild ways, but it interferes with life. Also, I've had several clients that have been injured with taking the shot or the vaccine. And so, because similar things have happened to them. And so what we do is we have a very specific treatment that we provide for those clients. And what I'm amazed with is I had one client that was really struggling, and it was from the shot injury itself. And I think this person also had COVID, but would come in and I would do the treatment, and she would like kind of be dragging in, and I would just watch her just come alive, and how the brain would just like, okay. And she would walk and say, I'm feeling great. And she
Wow.
would walk out with the clear brain and all of that. So again, and it's different for everybody, but yeah, COVID is a real thing.
Yeah.
And it's done a lot of injuries as long and as well as just having the shot too. And so it's with some people, not everybody, but some people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So when you think about, I know you've got, if you don't mind talking a little bit about a couple of programs that you're getting ready to do, that you're partnering and collaborating with some people in town. I think those are really important. Because I have listeners all over the place that people can come in to Sandpoint and stay and do these immersions to help with this too. So if you don't mind, talk about a couple of these things, and I want to point out, Linda, when did you, because you were right across the hall from me, when did you open your practice here in?
Well, that was my practice right when I was right across the hall from you. And that was in I think I was finishing up my degree. And I think that was 2019 when I was there.
No.
Yeah. And so then moved here.
We didn't move into this building until I thought 2020.
Well, maybe it was 2020 then. I don't remember. So
because it's only been a couple of years is my point.
Yeah, it hasn't been that long, because I moved into this clinic a year ago in July, where we now have a clinic, and I have another neurotherapist who's actually top in the field in the Northwest of interpreting and analyzing our QEEGs. He's fantastic. I've got an admin assistant, and we have a neurotech, and it's an awesome team. We are so excited about what we do. Everyone is. And so we're really excited about that. And so yes, and we are a destination clinic. We had people this summer that came from Texas and from Utah and from Spokane and Boise. And so we love that, because they can come in a relatively short period of time and get what they need and then be on their way. And we love that. But to answer your question about the two projects, we are very excited about it. There's a young man in our community who struggled most of his life with addiction and with brain issues. He'd had a brain injury and just struggled and wanted so much to be free of that. And so a year ago in November, he had an accidental overdose and died. And so the family have put together what I suggested we do is let's do a Tim project. That's the name of the young man. And the family, offered then to provide funding for it, which I was thrilled about. And so we're so excited about that. We've had our first person go through.
And what is it about? Is it about helping with addiction?
Oh, it's totally focused on addiction and getting that brain healthy. Because what we know is you can do a lot of work, which is really good, of dealing with behavioral patterns, which is very important. But if your brain is really on fire with that addiction and that craving, you're most likely going to go back and use again, either drugs or alcohol. And so we really focus in on that. And if an individual is just coming off of drugs or alcohol, we have the protocol that we use can help with that craving and keep them in that program and keep them in treatment. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, that's great. And Linda, really quick, I want to riff. I don't know if you've seen this, and I want to put this out there for all of my listeners too. There is an excellent show on Hulu called Dope Sick. And it's given multiple perspectives on the whole OxyContin issue that we have. And how, like in my mind, I didn't realize until I actually watched this. Like, I think I knew it, but I didn't realize that those drugs actually change the anatomy, change your brain.
They do. They absolutely do. And we can see it.
Yeah. And so then for me, what connects for me is that you help people that their brain has changed, flip that back, it may not happen in a flip like a light switch, but you help them through that process so that their brain goes back to being a healthy brain, not a brain that has gotten fired in with the drugs itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And and what's interesting is we can see different parts of the brain with different uses with alcohol or the cocaine or heroin. But what we also see, which is really interesting, is that our culture, who we've kind of focused on marijuana is okay. Well, that's not what we see with brain. It is really hard. It actually is the number one aging part of the brain that does the most damage. And there's solid research. I think it was 60,000. The end number was 60,000 in that research, and so it's pretty well documented. But that's something people don't understand, and they said, well, no, it really does affect your brain. So the addict program is what we call it, and we work with a couple of other people in our community who have classes and support and counseling for the addicts. And so that is something we are very excited about, and I'm very grateful for the family in Tim's name to be able to support that. Yeah. And that's where, we get them in for solid treatment, either twice a day or at least once a day, for a period of time. And then, so we're really excited about that.
Yeah, that's great. So that's the one program. Now you have a second one you mentioned.
I do.
Yeah, what is that about?
That is so exciting because this is one of our families that I've been involved with that family for several years. I actually worked with them down in Spokane, and she has a son that's autistic, pretty severely autistic. And when he would first come into our offices, he would go into each room and lower the blinds or turn on the lights or put things back where he thought they should be. And he was pretty much nonverbal. And we wanted to be able to help this kid, but we couldn't do a QEEG because that cap on the head with electrodes and putting they can't tolerate it. Yeah. So what I did was we have another process where we just it's a cap on the head with what we call coils. That is it's like a bathing of the brain to bring it into just a balanced calmness. And I didn't know if it was going to work. I kind of thought, well, we'll try it. And this kid started changing in amazing ways. The mom started getting emails and calls from the teachers. What are you doing with this kid? He's sitting in class. He's paying attention. And when we started, he was, I think, 13. I think he's about 14 now. And was able to then talk to people. And his mom, she sent me this going, and she says, I can't believe it. It would take me 10 hours to shave him and cut his toenails and fingernails, where now I can do it in 10 minutes. And he
Wow.
actually talks in complete sentences, and he's more engaged and more involved in life. And they come once a week. And I just can't wait to hear. And one of the first times when he walked into my office and he said, "Good morning, Dr. Linda," it made my whole day, week, month, year.
Wow. Wow.
So we are so excited about that because the families really struggle with autistic kids. It's just very frustrating to communicate, to take them out in public. And so we're very excited about this program. And
Great.
it's
So
the Levi Project.
So the Levi Project, if you have autism
Yes.
or on the spectrum, you can come in
Yes.
and get this treatment that's different,
Absolutely.
slightly different than what you do.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, because
It
of the
helps them.
sensory issues and all of that. So,
Right.
and that we're looking for funding for that. We don't have funding for that, but yeah, that's something that we're very excited about, both of those programs.
That's great. So when you say funding, like both the Tim Project and the Levi Project, right now you're still looking for funding. Does that mean like someone that's suffering from addiction, that they'll get some financial support if they come in and do that?
It's completely funded right now. There's no charge.
Okay.
But
Okay.
they go through a process of being making sure that that it's appropriate for them to be in it with wherever they are. And number one is commitment. You're going to show up, because I consider this sacred funds, because this is all about Tim and helping addicts so that they don't have to go through the pain and what happened to Tim. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Linda, a couple last questions for you. One is a book. You have a book that you love that you would recommend to people?
Oh my gosh, I'm sitting here with my library. God, I love books. And one that I've just finished and almost finished reading is Living Fearless. And I love that because it ties into what I do here as a therapist and helping people get in touch with, when they have a healthy brain and they're able to do more of the cognitive work, to get in touch with what is their true identity and who are they? Yeah. And if we can go there, and that defines us, and then what we do is out here driven by our identity. I just love that. And it fits right into what we do with the brain and healing and helping people, live their, full life.
Yeah, well, fantastic. And so if someone wants to learn a little bit more about what you do, maybe even come see you, regardless of where they're at in the world, I guess, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where would you recommend for them to go and find out more information?
Well, on our website, it's www.nidnt. It's the abbreviation for North Idaho Neurotherapy.com. And that's our website. And that has all the information to contact us. And we absolutely love what we do, and we get people in pretty quickly, because what we do is we want to get people treated, and one of our favorite things is to graduate somebody and send them on their way.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. Linda, thank you so much for being here today. And the website will actually be in the show notes. And if you would like to reach out to me and gain some clarity about your life and lead a lit up life yourself, like I think about Linda and all of the different experiences you went through and got your education and now have this clinic that is helping so many people. And I remember having a conversation with you when, our brain is in fear sometimes and you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And now look at this. It's so exciting to see. So if you would like to get a hold of me, you can also find my website in the show notes, and I would love to set up 30 minutes with you. Just click on, I think it's Chat with Debbie or something like that. I don't know. My team does such a good job. I don't even know what's on there anymore. But set up a clarity call with me, and I'd love to chat with you. And with that, it's a wrap, and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for listening. The song Ride is co-written and sung by Miss Jackie Wilson and her collaborators Tyler Banks, David DJ Lee, and Chris Renee. And a huge shout out to them for allowing us to use this perfect song. Everyone have a fabulous week, and I'll talk to you next week.